So there's been just so much parity this year with the 2021 NBA draft class. All of these guys are into year number 3, and I feel like every month we change on how our redrafts would go. So I was like, you know what, let's take a crack at it today. So what's going on, everybody? How is everybody doing? Yes, I'm going to be doing my 2021 redraft. We're about a month and a half into the 2024 NBA season, so I don't want this to be too reactionary or have a lot of recency bias, but I think we are learning a lot more about the 2021 class. So if you guys do enjoy these videos, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. I'm going to go 14-1, and I'll have my explanation on who I think would go here in a redraft. We're going to put our minds into what they would be like in the 2021 offseason with what we know today about these players. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So I'm actually cheating here at 14 because there was just 5 different guys that I could have choose from. All of them are complementary role players in their own ways. You could throw Bones Highland here if you want a spark plug scorer off the bench. You could have Quentin Grimes here if you want a little bit of 3-and-D action. Santi Aldama if you want to space the floor a little bit for a big man. You could go Jonathan Kuminga, who is going to fall out of the top 10. Yeah, very athletic, but I think he has been very disappointing with at least his efficiency and offensive creation with the Warriors. Or you could have who originally went here, Moses Moody at 14 to the Warriors. Moody has definitely been more efficient as he enters year 3 and is looking like the more promising 2021 lottery draft pick over Kuminga for Golden State. So yeah, I basically had 5 guys for number 14. Now let's get into number 13. Originally, the Indiana Pacers selected Chris Duarte out of Oregon. He was definitely an older prospect coming into the draft. I'm going to have them select Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga. Kispert went 15th to the Washington Wizards, and he has been a very consistent shooter since he got drafted. I was upset when Kispert landed in Washington because I really wanted to see him on a contender just because he could be so valuable as an elite shooter off the bench for a team trying to win playoff games. He's a career 39% three-point shooter, and I do wonder if Washington is going to extend him this offseason or if a team may look to trade him. But yeah, Indiana gets Kispert. This was before the Halliburton trade, so they get some much-needed floor spacing for Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner in that front court. Next at number 12, man, the San Antonio Spurs are usually a really good drafting team, but not here. But they reached in hindsight, and at the time even, everybody knew this was a reach. They took Joshua Primo out of Alabama. I know I did not even have a first-round grade on him. A lot of analysts had him in the back end of the first round, and that is not going to be the pick here. Obviously, he had all the off-the-court stuff in San Antonio. Now he's in LA. But I'm going to have them select somebody that's breaking out here in the 2024 season, and that's Jaylen Johnson. Jaylen Johnson was originally the 20th overall pick to Atlanta, and he has improved every aspect of his game in year 3, averaging a career high in points, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. I mean, he is averaging 14, 7, and 2 so far this season through 15 games. Unfortunately, though, he's going to be out for a little bit with a wrist injury. And a 3-headed wing trio of Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Jaylen Johnson would have been super fun for the San Antonio Spurs development as a team after they finally moved on from DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. Obviously, this is the pre-Wemby era too, but yeah, that would have been a fun trio to watch. Next up at number 11, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who desperately tried to pair up James Bouknight with LaMelo Ball. They wanted that backcourt partner for the future just because they landed such a stud in the 2020 draft with LaMelo. And I liked Bouknight out of UConn, and I was just wrong about him. He just did not work out. He also had some off-the-court issues as well. It's kind of a trend for some of these lottery picks. And I'm going to have them select Cam Thomas, who originally went 27th overall to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I'd like to put Cam Thomas higher for sure, but it's just been such a small sample size for him playing at the elite level he has so far to start off the season. Obviously, we saw a brief stint of him last year scoring at an elite level where he scored over 40 points and 30 points left and right for a couple of games. And this year, he got off to an incredible start with the Brooklyn Nets, averaging 26 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists on solid efficiency of 46% from the field, 34 from 3, and 85 from the line. He also did miss some time so far this year, but he just came back for Brooklyn and looks like he's going to be the player he was pre-injury. And Cam Thomas would have been a nice backcourt partner next to LaMelo long-term because Terry Rozier was always that veteran that we always thought could get traded at any moment. He's still on the squad. James Bouknight did not work out, but Cam Thomas would have been a lot of fun next to LaMelo Ball in that backcourt for sure. All right, we had a trade for the 10th overall pick originally. This was supposed to go to New Orleans, and then they ended up acquiring Jonas Valanciunas. They got off of the Eric Bledsoe deal, so then Memphis ended up going up to number 10 from 17. And it's funny too because the player New Orleans traded down from 10 to 17, and they selected, I have going here at 10 at their original pick, and that's Trey Murphy. So the original selection was Zaire Williams out of Stanford. He has not worked out at all. He's been pretty disappointing for Memphis. And Trey Murphy is one of the best shooters in the NBA. He's arguably the best shooter from this draft class. He's a career 40% three-point shooter. Man, I loved him out of Virginia. I did not think he was going to be the best shooter in this class, or at least better than Corey Kispert, because I think Kispert really had that hype to be the best shooter in this draft class. And Trey Murphy has been a phenomenal piece for this Pelicans team. He just came back from his injury that he missed the start of the season with, and he's already averaging averaging 17 points, shooting 50% from the field and 39% from three, picking up where he left off after a strong 2023 season. He could have multiple 50, 40, 90 years ahead of him. He's that good. And I'm excited to watch him progress as a defender as well on a very good defensive Pelicans team. Maybe foreshadowing a pick in a couple selections. And imagine Trey Murphy and Desmond Bane as floor spacers for Steven Adams, Triple J, and Ja Morant. That would have been insane, man. They've been desperately looking for that small forward, and it just did not work out with Zaire Williams. Obviously, they've experimented with Luke Kennard, Dillon Brooks, but man, Trey Murphy would have been a great building block for this team. So at number 9 here, Sacramento took Davon Mitchell, the point guard out of Baylor, came in as projected to be one of the better perimeter defenders in this class. And while he has been a good defender in his career, he has not lived up to any hype on the offensive side of the ball. He's a career 42% field goal shooter, 31% from three. He is down across the board this season, and I wonder if he's going to even be on this Kings team next year. So I'm going to have them select Josh Giddey, who originally went 6th to the Thunder. And I definitely had a tough time ranking Josh Giddey in this redraft because obviously there's the whole off the court issues with him going on right now that I'm not going to get into, because if they're true, he should be out of the league. If they aren't true, then I'll feel really bad that everybody's trying to tear down this man's career. So I'm not going to say anything until we get actual evidence coming out and the NBA and legal authorities make a decision. And it's funny too, because at the end of last year's season, after the play-in tournament where he balled out against New Orleans, his stock is kind of tanking right now. He has not been great this season. He's not been good this season for the OKC Thunder, who have been a really good team. Guys like Chet, Shea, Dort, J-Dub, balling out, Kayson Wallace. But Giddey, man, has definitely taken a step back. The numbers have gone down in points, rebounds, and assists on his career averages. He's shooting 42% from the field, 31% from three, and 77% from the line. And he wasn't a really good shooter going into this year, so his overall scoring efficiency has not been good, and his defense really hasn't been there either. This Thunder team is flooded with talented defenders that can kind of hide Giddey's disadvantages on that side of the floor, and they're kind of getting exposed at times this year. And I know they still had Tyrese Haliburton at this time, but I think Giddey is probably the best player they could have taken after I went through the top 8. You could make a good argument for Trey Murphy or Jaylen Johnson to go here, though, for sure. All right, number 8 here, the Orlando Magic originally took Franz Wagner. Obviously, he's going to be a lot higher in this redraft, but I'm going to have them select who they took at 5, Jaylen Suggs. And it's cool to say this because going into this year, Suggs might not even have made it in this video. He probably wouldn't even have been in my top 14. But he is somebody that we definitely needed to be a little bit more patient with. And I think a lot of us thought coming out of Gonzaga, he could have been their franchise point guard. He could have been maybe a 20-8 guy one day. But I think he's really found his right role in Orlando, just being an identity of this team's elite defense this season. He's giving Orlando 13 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3 assists tonight, shooting 45 from the field and 37% from three. Also pretty solid as well from the line, 81.5%, which is up year over year. And that identity as just a 3-and-D guy for a team that's having a ton of success in his 3rd season is perfect for Suggs, and I still think he should go in the top 10 in a redraft. So number 7 here, the Golden State Warriors originally took Jonathan Kuminga. I talked about him as a potential honorable mention for pick number 14. I just feel like he hasn't really taken that step where I should really say he would go top 10 again. I liked him out of the G League Ignite. I won't lie. I thought his athleticism was really going to translate to the next level as a dominant offensive player. And yeah, Golden State definitely don't regret this pick too much since they won it all in 2022, but what could have been, and that's them selecting the guy that went 35th overall. One of the biggest jumps, actually the biggest jump here in this redraft, and that's Herbert Jones from the New Orleans Pelicans. I kind of foreshadowed before, so yeah, Trey Murphy and Herbert Jones going right here into the lottery. David Griffin and the Pelicans front office absolutely aced this draft for where they were at, getting studs at 17 and 35. That's a job well done. And Golden State just obviously has that identity sometimes as a fierce defensive team, and Herbert Jones is one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. You could say he's been a top 5 overall defender in the league this season, and his offense has been some of the best of his career so far, averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists tonight, shooting 52% from the field, 36% from three, and 88% from the line. This guy's better than just a typical 3-and-D guy. I'm a huge fan of Herbert Jones. I loved him out of Alabama, and I'm really glad he's flourishing in New Orleans. And just imagine if he was still on Golden State right now, he'd be everything more than like what Gary Payton has given to them, and obviously would be an upgrade over Kuminga and obviously Moses Moody. Okay, number 6 here. This is an interesting one. So it was originally Josh Giddey. We talked about him before. I have him going to Sacramento at 9. This is a potential pick that I think OKC OKC would still take the chance on to pair him up next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was dealt a horrible position with not good head coaching, not good management, and an AAU style offense. I'm going to have Jaylen Green still go here in the top 10. I have him number 6 now because I still think the potential is there for Jaylen Green. I could see it in him. He's a good defender. He has all the intangibles and potential to be a really good defender in this league. He's super athletic. He's super active at times on the ball and off the ball. And like I said, just his first 2 years in the league with Steven Silas, not a true point guard, no true veterans or leaders in that locker room. It was just the worst case scenario for Jaylen Green. But if you paired him up with a good young head coach like Mark Daigneault next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, so Jaylen Green wouldn't be asked to be the guy to do it all. And you also got Lou Dort next to him as well that can help him out on the defensive side of the ball. Hell yeah, I think Jaylen Green would be looked at so differently if he was drafted to OKC originally. And I'm not saying he needs a change of scenery right now, but I do think that he would be looked at as a top guy from this class if he didn't end up in Houston at number 2. Okay, so we're in the top 5. This was by far the hardest thing to do in this video. There were 5 guys that were clear-cut consensus top 5 picks, but man, you can go in any 1 through 5 order, and I could see a good reasoning for it. I don't think there's a right answer to this. I don't think there's a wrong answer to this. And I think with all this talent in the 2021 draft, just being a consensus top 5 pick originally in a redraft is really good praise. So it was tough to do. Number 5, Orlando. They originally took Jaylen Suggs. We had him go to Orlando at 8. I'm going to have them take Alperen Sengun, who originally went 16th to the Rockets. So yeah, we have back-to-back Rockets picks here in the redraft. Sengun has just been so freaking good this year. It was so tough to put him at 5, but I just think that he's come onto the scene a little bit later than the 4 guys ahead of him. But oh my God, his stat line is so good, man. It's so good. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists for a 6'11 center. He's also shooting 54% from the field and 32% from 3. An above-average defender as well. Sengun is so good. That's how loaded the top part of this draft can be in a redraft. Orlando could either play him at the 4. They would just bump Wendell Carter Jr. out of the starting 5. He could have been better right away if he was under the defensive-minded head coach like Jamal Mosley before Ime Udoka came, obviously in Houston, which turned his career around a little bit. He would have had solid point guard play like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz feeding him the ball. And yeah, he's a consensus top 5 pick. You could have him at number 1, and I'd be okay with it. All right, so coming in at number 4, Toronto took the rookie of the year from this class, Scotty Barnes originally. They're going to end up with Franz Wagner with this selection. Franz had a little bit of a slow start to the season, and he balled out for Team Germany in the FIBA World Cup this past summer, and he's really come along as of late. Over his last 12 games, he's averaging 22.5 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists a night, shooting 52% from the field. I would like his 3-point percentage to just be a little bit better this year, but I think he can emerge as the number 1 scoring option for the Magic for the remaining part of the season over Paolo Banchero, as they are going to make a top-seeded playoff push, it looks like. He's a good defender. He's a 6'10 wing. It's everything you want in a modern NBA forward. And like I said about Sengun, Franz Wagner could go number 1 in your redraft, and I'd be perfectly okay with it. And you know Masai Ujiri would just be super happy and thrilled to get Franz at 4 still. All right, so number 3. The original pick was Evan Mobley to Cleveland. I'm going to have Scotty Barnes go number 3 here. It's crazy because there's just so much parity in this class, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, because going into this year, Scotty Barnes might not even have been in my top 5. But Barnes is breaking out in year 3. Obviously, he had an incredible rookie season. He had a down sophomore year last year, but he is really breaking out fully this year, just averaging under 20 points per game for Toronto, 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 46 from the field, 38 from 3, and playing really good defense. He would fit perfectly with Darius Garland and Jared Allen in Cleveland. Obviously, this was pre-Donovan Mitchell as well, and they could still have the assets to go out and get Donovan Mitchell, and Barnes could just take Evan Mobley's spot. Obviously, not as elite as Mobley is on the defensive side of the floor, but definitely more versatile and balanced on the offensive side of the floor. And like I said about Franz and Sengun, put Barnes at number 1. And I'm okay with it. All right, I'll stop saying that because you can obviously say that about these 2 guys that we have left as well. So Houston originally took Jaylen Green. We talked about him before going to OKC. I have them selecting Evan Mobley here, who obviously originally went number 3 to Cleveland. I do wonder, though, how Mobley's career would have worked out if he didn't go to JB Bickerstaff in Cleveland and went to the shit show that was going on in Houston with Steven Silas at the time. Would he still be the elite defender he is already, or would it have taken a little bit of time? Mobley this year is averaging 16 points and 11 rebounds for Cleveland, 57% from the field, averaging just under 2 blocks a night. The one thing about Mobley is I wish his jumper developed a little bit more. We didn't really see it in the playoffs. We didn't really see it too much last year, and we haven't seen it this year. He's shooting 35% from the field on shots 3 to 10 feet, 42% on 10 to 16 feet, and from 16 feet to the 3-point line, 28%. From 3 this season, he's shooting 20%. So yeah, not much of a jumper from Evan Mobley, but obviously just an elite defender. I think he would go number 2 to Houston just because of the positional versatility with him at the 4 or at the 5. He can guard anyone on the floor inside the paint. He's going to win one, maybe multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards in his career, and I have him going number 2 to Houston. So, yeah, number 1. I don't know if you expected this or not. You can let me know who you would have number 1 in the comments below. I still have Kade Cunningham as this selection. Kade Cunningham is not a consensus, undisputed number 1 pick in a redraft. Like I said, the previous 4 guys can all go here, and I'm sure you guys are all going to have different top 5s in the comments. That's why I want to hear them. But I think if we go into a redraft, what we know today, I still think Kade Cunningham goes number 1. Like Jaylen Green, he has not been dealt a good hand. He's been on some bad Detroit Pistons teams. And unlike Ime Udoka for Houston this year, Monty Williams has not done a great job progressing this young core. And I don't think Dwayne Casey was a bad coach either. I think he would have been fine with Casey still. Kade is averaging 22 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists this year. He's shooting 41.5% from the field, which he's pretty much done throughout his career, but he's been a much better 3-point shooter this year. He's up to 35% from 3. He's an elite free throw shooter, which makes me think he's going to still be a consistent jump shooter. And I know he's right up there in the league in turnovers, but he's literally asked to do so much after coming off a major season-ending injury last year. He's got a 31% usage rate on a team that doesn't really have much help to him. He's relying a lot on Alec Burks, Isaiah Stewart, and Marvin Bagley. They're asking way too much from Asor Thompson on the offensive side of the ball. Monty Williams still refuses at times to play Jaden Ivey the minutes he should be getting. You're not getting much shot creation out of Jalen Duren outside the paint. Bojan Bogdanovic just came back, so hopefully takes a little bit of the load off of Kade Cunningham, but I think the potential is still there in Kade, and I don't think Detroit would still change their mind if they still had the number 1 pick, knowing what we know today. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy my 2021 redraft. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with in the comments below. Like I said, that top 5 would have a lot of parity to it, so I'd love to hear your top 5 in the comments, and then just scroll through the other comments as well, because I'm sure not a lot of people are gonna have the same top 5 as you. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Let me know if you guys also want to see this from other draft classes. Do you want to see this from 2020, 2022, or really way too early 2023 redraft? So yeah, drop a like if you guys enjoy. I love y'all. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.